Smart 24, driving business.
Our discussion continues, looking at resolving the increased inflation question. It is right now a question in the market, among the public domain, how commodities of food prices, they have hiked high, and we will lack a bit saying that we are in the East African community for economic integration, where maybe food wouldn't have been a problem. As a matter of fact, there is scarcity of food in the northeastern Uganda, the Karamoja sub-region, and of which, in amidst the same time of this inflation, it leaves us in a dilemma. I'd like to go back now to you, as I will come back to Dr. Mr. Frederick Chibedi. There is a report which is before me. I involve myself into it for discussion, but it's a monetary policy report of 2022, February. And by the then time, the Bank of Uganda took keen interest to look at the global economic activity and the international commodity prices, credit the private sector, as a way to propose grounds which can enable have monetary policy reforms that can mitigate the chances of inflation. I'd like to bring you back into this discussion as we reflect on that and see how best can we have reliable monetary policies that will match with the current trend of what is happening, the global economic activity, the international commodity prices, and the domestic financial markets.
Thank you very much. Where I come from, I'll start with where I come from. There is a saying that a dog which is not smart already will run away even when you throw a bone at it. You know, when you are eating and the dog is waiting to pick a bone from you, a smart dog will see and monitor every movement from the mouth table to the mouth. When you throw the bone like this, it will grab it and eat it.
That's the wise one.
That's the wise one. Now, a lazy one will be sleepy. By the time you throw the bone, it runs away thinking you're stoning it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we as a country need to be at that point in time when we are dog smart. We are able to see the times and able to see the advantages and take advantage of them. Shortly before we close, you're talking about public expenditure.
Yes, please.
And you know, public expenditure, that needs to be frugal, and we need to be wise, and need to not just consume for purposes of just consuming, but to consume for the purposes of creating production and exciting the economy into being a productive economy. But you have wasteful expenditure, you have absence of value for money, disregard for this country. You know, the motto for God and our country, I don't know whether you know that motto was picked from a school called Fiscal College Mwiri.
Wow, yeah.
But Fiscal College Mwiri's motto is not for God and our country. Its motto is for God and my country. You think about it as an individual. Because when you think about it as our country, you leave the responsibility for this, our country, to another person, so another person will be able to take care of it. So you see wasteful expenditure, you see abuse on the road, you see the vehicles that abuse the road traffic rules and therefore create the jam and also create the wasteful expenditure, and those that are driven by people who are thinking about this as our country rather than as my country. So we need to get back to the point in time when we see this country as my country individually before it is our country. And as a result of that, people will be more mindful of what they do and how they do it, to be able to preserve this country and make it the basket that it's supposed to be for the world. Because you see, even if we sat here with this weather that we are given and just simply concentrated on production, food production, and probably value addition, would find ourselves in a situation where even though the globe changes, we remain static because we have the gold that they don't have. The war in Ukraine has affected everybody, yes, but should it affect us that much? Because somebody is at the global stage doing something, and therefore we should be scared, even us here, when we have every resource that we need. I think that is something that calls for an overhaul of thinking. And in my view, I think that it has to start with individuals. If this revolution of thinking about Uganda as my country does not start with you and me, teaching our children how to be responsible citizens, making them appreciate the issues that affect them individually first, because individuals make up the nation. The nation isn't made up of a group of people. It starts with an individual. That individual responsibility needs to start now. And I think that report of Bank of Uganda of February, talking about how you intervene in terms of
the global financial markets,
the global financial markets, how you play on that
international commodity prices.
Exactly. How you play on that market depends on how you yourselves here, ourselves here, have prepared ourselves to be able to be part of that stage. You know, somebody recently one day said, they have the currency, the Western countries have the currency, but we have the resources here. That currency, the dollar, does not represent as much gold as there is in Congo, for example. But how come we are still so poor, and if they are so rich? It's how we have positioned ourselves, and how we have left ourselves to self-pity, and decide that, no, let come what may. I also sometimes think, I'm a Christian, and I'm an evangelist, but I also think there's also too much faith in our people. Chance and say, okay, as God will it.
But let me say this. Since you're a Christian, if one comes and is a good Christian like Apostle Paul, there's a certain economist who is a businessman, the former president of USA,
exactly,
was rebuking us by Africans, but abusing us, I can say. And for Apostle Paul said that foolish Galatians who
bewitched you.
So for sure, in the midst, when we have these resources, why should we continue to cover up and say we are not able? You see Ukraine war. Yet, it's a question I am posing. Maybe you can substantiate on it. Yet, we are having our land is here. Our lakes, they are here to easy irrigation and all the rainfall. And the seeds that are with us here, if we were to have factories, they are here because that's production. Why? Where is a mismatch? Because one of the things that will save Uganda is to come at a point and we have the reality of this.
Exactly.
I know you have a lot to say. Please come on and give us your take.
You know, one time I picked a guest from Entebbe. I was taking him to Jinja. And in Entebbe, he saw Lake Victoria. So when we reached Jinja, I said, is this the same lake that I saw in Entebbe? I said, yes, it's the same lake. So why did we have to come by this road? Why didn't we come by water and we are here? Are there falls? Are there rapids? Then he said, oh my God, you people are so endowed. You have so much. We have the water. We don't have to depend on the weather. The weather is also very good. And I think that's why somebody had said that maybe the natural endowment has also made us a little bit less. We have so much that we can do to intervene and create the production that we need, so that this inflation that is driven by food should not really be an inflation that affects this country, because we have what it takes to produce and to reserve and to sell out to the other countries at a very big advantage as opposed to others. But what happens is we've cowed ourselves as a nation, and I think we need an awakening of sorts, a rebuke of sorts. Somebody coming to rebuke us and say, who bewitched you, is really, really right. Because you see, why would somebody die of hunger in Uganda? In any part of Uganda.
I don't know whether you have heard the documentary of what is happening in Karamoja.
Yes, I have seen.
You know, when we saw ourselves here, we are like coming from heaven. I've
seen that documentary. I've also seen Pastor Kayanja
taking their tractors
and cultivating and you see the land is black and heavy and fertile. It is something. And unfortunately, I must say it's something that we need to point ourselves at the time when we have been given the opportunity to be able to thrive how we thrived. The leadership And the leadership, I don't mean political leadership. I mean leadership at every level. Leadership at the family unit level, leadership at the faith-based level, leadership. In school, when I was growing up, we used to have what they used to call the Young Farmers Association. Young Farmers Association. Each one of you was responsible for a garden. You're supposed to go to the garden every Wednesday afternoon and show cause why you ate the eggs in school because they are produced from the poultry farm that has been facilitated by, and if these things are inculcated in each individual at every level, you'll find yourself with a country that knows and appreciates that, we are a productive country. Everything that you plant grows. There's nothing that you plant that does not grow. This is the only place in the world where this happens. In fact, when they ask me when I've traveled and they say, your soils, what do they produce? I say everything.
Okay. We are going to take a corporate responsibility as we go into continue the open discussion, discovering the realities and analyzing what exactly affects us and how to come out of it. Because there is always a belief that if you know what's about to kill you, you can easily get the medicine, yes, and you come out of that, dilemma. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Henry Clark. Yes. And there is something that I still feel, yes, that while we are taking a collective responsibility, yes, and recalling how policies are implemented in the countries, and I recall the theory of the free market theory, yes, which was supported by Porter, Porter, 1992. He refers the need to have the invisible hand, to always be in a prey to regenerate. What do you think in the midst of this? Which invisible hand is missing? Or do we need the invisible hand to lead us to be a mass productive country that is not producing little rice and which is competing with the Tanzania, and finally we are beaten hands down, and there also begins to be one of the reasons why the foreign exchange begins to slow down.
I love Porter so much that in his proverbial way of approaching theories, but also relating them to practice, when he spoke about the invisible hand, he didn't mean something you don't see. He meant you, doctor, he meant Frederick, he meant me, we're the invisible hand. There must be somebody who should stand out of the crowd. You've seen some of those adverts, that stand out of the crowd and say, I'm going to champion the pathway towards a more stable nation, which can be more dependent on itself by also its resources and trade with others on equal footing. So he does not mean some invisible hand from somewhere that may be, okay, there are angels, Frederick will attest to that, but he meant us, the nation. I'll say, for example, take for instance, I did history at some point in time, and I remember studying the Bourbon monarchy, which they say that it learned nothing, forgot nothing. They were in power. The whole dynasty of French kings, monarchs were in power. They were thrown out after about 400 years of leadership of different countries in Europe. When they were reinstalled, they went back to their lavish lifestyle. They went back to ravaging economies which had been now restored by new leaders. So basically, we don't want to be that kind of person. But also, remember that as much as we're talking about inflation and the economy and the finance, we're talking at the level, national level, but it all starts with an individual believing that I can be a change for my country. Then it comes to the cultural, social norms. Me, when I hear people saying that we ask the government to help us, I'm like, who is government? I mean, government is me, you, and others. Everything. They made it even a joke. Some people say that, oh, our Uganda is fun. The way it sounds in Luganda, that Uganda chafe chinyuma. That, Uganda chinyuma. Just mockery. You mock your own nation. But let me give some, 5 pointers towards how we are going to recover from this situation. One is planning, not being reactive. There should be a purported effort. Institutions that are being set should do their roles and not just see themselves as favored individuals to sit in chairs and swing there and think that people are just going to come pleading towards them. When I say civil servant and people are begging, queuing, and the civil servant is busy taking their tea, I'm like, if this was in my private sector company, they would be fired the next second.
You get fired immediately.
I mean, I just fire you. I can't tolerate such nonsense. Then again, also another thing is that we have to look at our budgets, the national budget. How do we make budgets? Do we make budgets hoping that we are going to depend on debt or borrowing, or are we proactive on facilitating production lines? Where do we have the comparative advantage? In agriculture, say maize grows so well here, wheat does so well here. Why don't we look at value chain development, ecosystem development, finance those, then have these young people get involved, everybody get involved, but then we process, we don't export raw materials. We export already finished materials, which will collect us or fetch us more forex. And I think that is the pathway. But also, Ugandans, I don't know who taught them in which school how to be defensive. They are so defensive. You never seem to tell a Ugandan the truth and they want to believe. They want to say you're blaming them or you're criticizing them. They are so defensive. Everything they feel that you're provoking them, there must be some. But at times, some of us are not looking for favors. If I can sit here on TV and share with the audience that these are the pathways that we have to follow, and the next day I'm approached that you come, there's a heavy position in some office, you're going to advise some big person on these issues of financial economics, and I go silent. I don't see myself being that person. I will always say the truth in black and white as long as I still live, and to see Uganda change for the better. I know I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but Uganda is one day going to get back to when it was called the Pearl of Africa.
But this will require the facing of realities and also the change of the mindset where when you advise, you don't be looked as a rebel, as anti maybe somebody, but as someone who is wishing well. And I would like to take it back to you in 2 minutes that it goes on to Mr. Frederick after.
Yes.
There is a concern in that regard, and I want us to be pointing on, and they say this. For God and my country. That's where I'm starting it from. We take it up from there. If you are the president, or you are the member of parliament, we bring in the issue of the economics and those who control resources, not for politicking, but to be real, to know the hands that feeds into the economy. You talked about the national budget, but by the time you are allocating resources and you find out of the square million miles of land which are not cultivated that are equal to 12 million miles square kilometer, which needs to be produced. Instead of buying tractors and give them to farmers or support the very farmers, the private sector in agriculture, you increase more other constituencies, you increase more other districts. And finally, some people have said this, you talked about it. Uganda has money, that's the question. But how is it being used? Now suppose you're in a advisory position.
Yes.
I have encountered with some politicians, they seem to hide it out.
Yeah.
What could you advise into that kind of the gap?
I would say that for good
production versus expenditure.
If we are going to say that for good and my country, it's more of like stop criticizing development. Don't confuse politics with economics. These are dynamics which can coexist, but are very different approaches. And what would I expect of a parliamentarian or a LOC5 or LOC3 who had to bribe the electorate to be in office? what would I expect of them in service delivery? Definitely, I expect them to just go sit there and look at their bellies. Oh, I don't know whether that's what my colleague called for God and our country. No, more God and my stomach. Because I don't expect much from them. But also, the reality would be that let us support the new paradigm shift of government when they talk about exports replacing imports. Let us have the hope that there will be more facilitation with the program budgeting other than sector budgeting, and support goes to the grassroots for production, and then have to say processing, and we export finished products and reduce on the imports. And let us take it one step at a go. By the way, for your information, if 10.7% is a threat to you right now, as we're doing our analysis, you know, every night we sit on screens doing financial markets analysis. The situation by 2025, don't be surprised if it goes this way and we end up in 17%.
Oh, sorry. I pray we can descend from that. I'm giving you some 2 minutes to respond to the same question that I posed to him. Production versus expenditure, and we know what is happening. He enlightened us on the very kind of expenditure, buying more vehicles. Our policy is different. You buy for ministers and you buy for the civil servants vehicles, you give them fuel, you give them clothes, security. Then whether the presidential crew, the security, I'm not talking about it, very much concerned, but again, there's a concern, you are having all of that kind of it. How can we match the two?
You asked the question, mixing politics and economics.
Yeah.
But what is politics? It's about managing the resources of a country.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not short of examples of people who have meant business and have measured by results. I mean, the man in the neighboring South here did his country good in 4 years, and he had turned round. You were able to see results. He died in 4 years, but he'll be remembered forever.
Yep. The late
Magufuli.
Mm-hmm.
Measure by results. You say something and mean it. But you see, for me, I own a private farm.
Mm.
And when I am hiring people, I hire people who are better than me.
Mm.
The reason is very simple.
Mm.
Because I don't want to sit here thinking I know when somebody else is out there who could work for me and make things better. Now, politicians have a problem. They think they know, and we have had those confessions. But you need to listen to the people who know, to tell you what to do. And this theory has been around time immemorial. When the king of Egypt was faced with an economic crisis that was looming, what did he say? He needed a Joseph to be able to, who knows, to be able to help him plan the resources of the country, and the entire world went to him.
Thank you. The information is simple. We will have only reforms when we have leaders that are ready to listen, and they don't say they know it all. And when they are advised how to change, they are able to cope up and make reforms, and then we realize good results. Mm. This is a good session as we go for the last one. Please stay tuned.
Smart 24